Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is July 15th, 2024, and we're going to look at Bitcoin on the daily here and some higher term timeframes to check on the weekly and some timeframes in between, like the 3 and 5 day as well, that we have to follow up on. Now, we're going to start on the daily because we do have a trend change now on Bitcoin. Now, you may remember on Friday, Bitcoin had just closed. It had tapped on the bottom side of our danger zone, which was this previous lower low over here at 56,500. And I had mentioned that if Bitcoin can trade in the danger zone or stay in the danger zone over the weekend, it was more likely to trade sideways and up. Although I did mention, like beware of the 12 hours. It relates to the 4 hour and the lower term timeframes to really check for that kind of availability. Well, in Saturday's candle, we actually saw it push up to some of our important areas overhead. Specifically, it started to push up above 58,400 and then dig into this zone right here, which was the wicks over here at roughly around that 58.4 level to our 60,300 level. Now, it didn't quite test that until Sunday, but it started to get moving. And more importantly, on the Saturday closure, we saw a higher low set. You can see that this candle closed at 59,224. Now, in order to break the downtrend, we needed to see it close above 59,500 here. But because it closed above all of the close open structure on the low here, it set a higher low, not just on a close, but also on this swing down here at 56,500. Then it got the trend break above the 59,500 subsequently in the actual Sunday candle. So coming into the weekly close, we saw it actually push up to the next big area and close above 60,300. Now, of course, that led to the next target, and that was up here at around this 2, 3, and 4 day lower high to break those timeframes downtrend. Now, in this case, it pushed into the area that I was talking about above here. On Friday, I had mentioned that if it did close above 60,300, the next big area that I was looking for was somewhere around this high, this lower high of this downtrend, but also the lower high on the 2, 3, and 4 day chart at 63.8 to around $64,000. Excuse me. We actually saw it push into the next area that I floated as an idea for an area to look for above 63.8, especially on any closures. Well, that is the lower high from this downtrend here at $64,000 to that wick high at 65.5. So we will keep this 2, 3, and 4 day lower high downtrend to break line here, but we are going to highlight this zone with a box between 64 and 65.5. Now, Bitcoin did push up to just shy of $65,000. We saw the high of yesterday come in at, what was it? Just shy of $65,000, 64,943. So big area historically. If I'm going to be fully upfront with you here, as I always am. I don't know why I said that, to be quite honest. But in this case, I bring this up because we want to turn this off. We'll turn this off, and we'll go to the long-term time frame support and resistance chart. I haven't shown this one in a while, so if you are new, if this is your first time seeing it, we have the monthly closes in the orange zone down here with the orange horizontals. This was the prior cycle closing highs on the monthly, so between 58.8 and 61,350 or so. And then we had the swing high structure from 2021 here at $65,000. That was the first high that was put in 2021. And then, of course, the prior all-time high at $69,000. So that is the area that Bitcoin tested. Now, for local structure, it is a macro structure that it just bumped into. So, pullbacks in the shorter term timeframes are going to be absolutely expected. This was a beautiful, you can see the way that price played even on the longer term timeframes. Bitcoin deviated the big monthly. This is also a quarterly zone. This March of 2021 monthly area at $58,800 to $59,000, depending on your chart. This was the first big closing high area in 2021. That's coming in from March of 2021. That's also quarterly. So Bitcoin basically deviate that quarterly from 2021, find it as resistance. And then once it was regained, where did it run to? It ran right to the prior cycle high on a close, and that is that 61,350 rejected, and then moved right through it to the March or April, March into April all-time high at $65,000, at least at that point, before putting in the $69,000 all-time high. So to be quite honest, now that I have the macro chart up and I'm explaining a little bit of this, if you are here and you are new to seeing this particular chart, if Bitcoin were to break into $65,000 on a close from the macro time frame perspective, $69,000 is the target, around there to around $70,000 or so. But when looking at the more localized structure here, we can see that we have some other areas of interest along the way in the shorter term timeframes here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. But it is interesting how clean price action is playing out right now. And realistically, I mean, it's been playing this way for the past 3 years or so, in a very clean and structured manner. Yes, even in those big events that you might remember all the way back to, actually, so it would be 4 years, all the way back to the big crash in 2020. Everything was extremely technical. I've talked about this many times with many of you in the various Discord servers during some of our Discord conversations. But in this case, from the local structure, we should mark out this lower high of this downtrend over here. So this was the first really big downtrend. We had the big expansion up. We had higher low structure. Yes, swing structure was in a downtrend on the daily, but this was a big closing higher low structure here. We had a lower high, higher low. We had a higher high, but failed to break above the prior swing high here. Thus, we were looking for, at minimum consolidation, and then possibly a larger move down into those monthlies that I was just talking about. That's what we got back here. But that was the big downtrend, the big lower low to lower high here, just above price action. And then this lower low to this lower high is the next area that Bitcoin's kind of trading in right now. So we should mark this out as an area of importance, at minimum on these lower term timeframes, like the daily, as it relates to some of those higher term timeframes. So we can go ahead and actually correct the colors here. We'll also mark this. So we've got $64,000 on this close right here. And I just missed getting the actual proper candle there. There we go. And this high is 65.5 right here. So we can see that essentially to break the 2, 3, and 4 day lower high, we need Bitcoin to basically close above $64,000. So if it can do that, I would be looking a little bit further to 65.5, potentially, if things are going to keep going. Excuse me. If things are going to keep going, then we can start looking up into, some of the low side structure up here, from this prior uptrend before the larger downtrend here. And that's right around the very next high at, 67 to 272. Above here, I am looking for Bitcoin to essentially run the highs. Could it take a pit stop in and around, $68,000 to $69,000, like I was just saying, that major time frame area on the monthly and the prior cycle high? Yes. But essentially, I would be looking for, anywhere above $68,000 for Bitcoin to run back to around $70,000 and then up to these highs here at 71,500 to around the all-time high at 73,835 and beyond to around $75,000. So do I think it's necessarily going to get a straight shot up there? I don't know. Germany is out of coins. They sold the lows. We thank them for their contribution to our bags. And in this case, I would be looking for another higher low, right? Because we have the nice downtrend to uptrending structure now. We've got a higher low. If a higher high was put in here, then we're looking back for support at, $60,000 down to that 58,400. Now the criteria, we can get rid of this actual call out for that daily trend break that I updated everybody with in chart format. But in this case, The criteria for this to turn bearish again would be any close back below the danger zone, 56,500, because now we do have an uptrending structure. We have the two major pieces. Yes, you want to see four. We want to see another higher low and then higher high. But in this case, I'm not looking at this as being, this is the etchings of what some might call an impulse. But I want to see some either sideways price action, or I want to see another higher low. If we are going to be looking at this trading anywhere back below, around $64,000, be aware of this structure right here. This is the high that was, the major area that we were looking at before at 62,800 right here. And then, of course, the wick high at 63,800. That is the 2, 3, and 4 day trend break criteria. Now, I bring this up because, if it's going to pull back, we want to see it holding this area. Otherwise, it could find its footing somewhere around, $62,000 here in this cluster of order block candles. But essentially, I would be looking at the must recover zone down here, and we can actually get rid of that box that's in there as well, as it is not relevant anymore. Clean up our chart a little bit. But essentially, I'd be looking for higher lows back into the must recover zone. That is between that 60,300, which is right where this low is, and the 58,400. So I would not want to see price trading back down below, anywhere below, if I'm being quite honest, I wouldn't want to see it anywhere below $60,000 from here. So if we do see a pullback, I'm going to be cautious below $60,000, which is essentially this the downtrend's really big low side structure here, where we had this complex low before that lower high, right into the prior resistance over here. So essentially below 64, 62 is in the cards, 62 to 63, but anywhere below there, be very, very aware of $60,000. You don't want to see the bears reclaim that. From a technical point of view, higher lows can come in really anywhere as long as it's closing above around 58,400, but I wouldn't want to see it below 60K. Trend break would occur on any closures, of course, back below 56,500. Bitcoin's trading quite a ways away from there right now, so it has room for a nice pullback. Just be aware of the top side resistance here around that 65.5, and then immediately above there we have this high between around 67 to 67,300, you can call it, where I have my run the highs green line there. That's kind of it for the daily. Not too much more going on. Things essentially played out, the way that we had defined the criteria, right? So in this case, if we look at the daily Stoke momentum here, we can see that the pivot is all the way down there at 57,900, almost $58,000. So again, that actually tells me that if we do get a pullback, like on the daily, it starts to go like maybe Tuesday, Wednesday candles come down. That pivot number is going to rise over the course of those days, those 2 days. If it were to do something like that, this is just hypothetical. That's where, that pivot number would actually be, higher and likely around that 60,300 area. So again, that's where I would want to see price head to if it did break down below any of this structure here. And just to give you, kind of incremental targets, 62,800 to 63,800. Below there is, 62K. There's a lot of clusters of candles in here. So we've got even order blocks from the initial move up at around 62 to 62.5. So it could stop there anywhere below the 62K area, and then 60K is in the works, right? So from an RSI point of view, we do have Bitcoin right around the edge of the bullish control zone. First pass rejection of getting into the bullish control zone on the daily is not abnormal at all. So again, looking for pullbacks, can things still push further on some of the lower term timeframes? We'll evaluate in a little bit here. But, I wouldn't be surprised to see a pullback, in what you want to see is higher low structure emerge from that. Now, the reason why I spent so much time on the daily looking at this and kind of explaining my thoughts on it is because of the 2, 3, and 4 day structure. We don't have higher low structure here. We just have the potential for a trend break. Now, in this context, what we're looking for is in the next, with this daily candle close, we will get a 2-day candle close. And if it does close above that 63.8 high, we will have a trend break on the 2-day chart. That is important. When we look at kind of the criteria here, we have hidden bullish divergence going on here. We do not have regular bullish divergence. We do have Stoke pointed to the upside here. Around 55,850 is actually the, it's even below our danger zone in terms of the momentum pivot. So it has some room for a pullback on the daily time frame. And maybe, later on it has room for a wider pullback on the longer term time frames. But in this case, we do want to see it kind of maintaining where it is, maybe even locally, and putting in swing higher low structure. Now, 3-day is going to be closing with this daily as well. And in this case, same area, 63,800. You can see that is the downtrend break. We do not have a higher low on this chart. So we only have, an uptrending structure on the daily, or the beginnings of, it's not full uptrend, but we do have an uptrending structure. So we do have a confirmed structure change on the daily, but not on the 2 and 3-day yet. We would only get a trend break. 4-day is the same thing. So we have the lower high here, and that is the same area, 63,800. Now, this is not going to be closing with today's daily. We only have the 2 and 3-day candles closing with today's daily. So if they do put in a trend break, then we have to keep our eye on the 4-day candles, so the subsequent 2-day candle and 4-day candle from there. And, it's got potential. I don't see this. I do feel that there was a pretty major low set, from what I've been seeing. 5-day did not update. Last time we did look at the 5-day, so it was really the 4-day. It was the 3-day, 5-day, actually, if I remember correctly, that we were looking at. Yeah, 3 days going to be closing with 2-day, 3-day. Now, the 5-day we do need to check on. Yeah, so in the next 2 days and 23 hours, what we're going to have is the 4-day, 3-day, and we'll get another 2-day. So we're going to see a 2-day closing today, and then we'll get another 2-day that's closing at the same time as the 4-day and 5-day. What I do want to pay attention to, and you can see it on the chart in RSI up here, you see the bullish divergence. This is hidden bullish divergence, which is typically a continuation drive when you're in a 5-day structure like this, which is, zoom out a bit. This is a nice bullish structure still. Yes, it is in the context of the current trend. It is a downtrend still on the 5-day. So exercise caution below this lower high. Bitcoin does need to close above it on the longer term timeframes, like a 5-day and a weekly. So, that is on a closing basis. We've got 69,300 to the highs there at around $72,000. Bitcoin needs to break this lower high on the 5-day. And if it gets a nice cross up in the next couple of days, it will have the potential to at least get pressure to the upside and, nice bullish divergence of a regular Stoke as well. We do have a little bit of a change. Actually, now that I look at it, let's go to the weekly, because the weekly did close. Nice buyback on the weekly. Here's what we got to look for coming into the end of the week, and I'll remind you throughout the week, is basically a close here or higher, 63,800 or higher. From a technical point of view, on the weekly, closes above 62,669. Nice. Would set a low on the weekly. But we're not going to be looking at like a momentum turn or anything like that. But it would be fitting if it did push up further and close higher, because this is right around the edge of the bearish control zone of a regular Stoke. 65,350 or 360 in this case is the weekly momentum pivot. So coming into the end of the week, Bitcoin's not trading too far under there. It's about $1,000 away from that particular pivot on the weekly. So that is something to pay attention to. And, yes, it is a downtrend on the weekly. This looks like a bull flag to me. The only way that I would get bearish is, back below 56,500. We're possibly running that low side structure into daily distribution into target 1 and target 2. which I've talked about quite a bit. I don't think that's in the cards unless we see something change in the next couple of days and we see, an exacerbated pullback that breaks structure on the daily below 56,500 on the wick. And in this case, Bitcoin's looking okay for right now. So let's go ahead and check on some of the lower term time frames. Let's go to the 12-hour here. This is beautiful 12-hour structure. Let's go ahead and turn on some Bollinger Bands and kind of sync those up with support and resistance. And in fact, why don't we go and check on the daily first, actually? Yeah, so Bitcoin it ran from the lower second all the way to the upper second, but it regained some key levels along the way. So pullbacks, let's see where we have confluent pullback areas. Upper first is right around this high side structure. Upper first is at, it's actually, no, actually it's not. Forgot log scale. No, it's not too far off. 62,800 to, yeah, 62,800 is not far off. 62.5 basically, upper first. Could it swing down to the upper first for support? Absolutely. No issue with that. Don't want to see it really closing back below the upper first from a volatility standpoint. That would be the bears reclaiming this lower high over here and thus pointing down to our $60,000 area. Could it try to save itself around some of the structure here at, mid 61 to 62s? Yeah, more likely going to run 60,000 or so, even if it would be on a wick basis, as we do see the basis band on the dailies under there. For those that don't know what a basis band is, that is just the 20 simple moving average. So, and then the upper first, second, and third, lower first, second, and third are 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations to the upside, 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations to the downside, if you want to know a little bit about the math for the volatility calculation there. In this case, basis is right in that must recover zone. Still, I'm going to maintain 60K on any pullbacks, any wider pullbacks that lead to daily pullbacks. Otherwise, I'm looking 62 to 63.8 as being a safe pullback zone. So that pretty much lines up. We see that the 12-hour is getting expansion to the upside. So we did have expansion to the downside. I believe I talked about this. And then we saw some compression coming into Friday. Yeah, so I did talk about the compression. We did see the 12-hour compression. And I had mentioned that closes back above the upper second standard deviation would start to hit our upside targets in terms of volatility expansion, and then closes below basically this. At the time, it was lower second was right at the 12-hour lower low at that 55.5, just, and that was even below the danger zone there at 56,500. Now then we were looking for expansion back to the actual lows and possibly lower. In this case, it chose the upside route. We want to see it closing the next 12-hour candles to maintain this expansion above 63.8. Pullbacks from the 12-hour time frame perspective can come all the way down to around 61,350, and again 61,350. We're going to do this again. My apologies, but just to kind of call out that 61,350 is that big monthly closing high. So there's closing high structure there, and that is right where the upper first standard deviation on the 12-hour is. So, we do have some confluence right above price, and you can see 58.8 is actually where the 12-hour basis band is. It's also the last high on this was a higher high on the 12-hour as well. So, right at that March monthly and quarterly. So that's Bitcoin's just been playing so beautifully and so technically with longer term time frame support and resistance, and even local when it comes down to even like the 15-minute. It's been just fantastic for such a long time. In this case, to maintain expansion, even if Bitcoin hangs out on the 12-hour sideways and loses the upper second, the upper first will begin to creep up more towards this high side area at 62,800. So again, giving us that shorter term time frame pullback area of 62.8 to 63.8. Above 65.5, I'm looking basically 66 to the 67,272 again. You can even see that the upper third standard deviation is moving its way up there into the $66,000 region. And then right above there is my run the highs zone. I'm not necessarily looking, if Bitcoin does break in here on the daily, that 67,272. I'm not necessarily looking for it to immediately run the highs, but that's likely going to show the bulls' strength. They can reclaim this area. Even if it pulls back into higher low structure from there, then I would be actually looking for it to continue to try up and to the right, looking pretty good. This is starting to line up with with Bitcoin on some of these longer term time frames. Outside of the weekly, it's starting to line up with my thesis that end of August we actually see like a really big run. I do think it's going to take a little bit of time when looking at Bollinger Bands. So let's get rid of everything here and just purely look at the volatility aspect of things. You have to forgive my voice. I still haven't recovered from last week with all the talking I was doing. Longer term time frames, it's starting to look a little bit better now. I guess we're going to look at just volatility, right? Yeah. All right. So from the volatility standpoint, we are still in an expansion phase on the Bollinger Bands here, although we have not, we are red DMI, right? Or red DMI. This is not DMI, this is volatility. So BBWP is the measurement of volatility as it relates to the bands away from the basis. And we're at a 60 over 66. Let's go ahead and actually check on that real quick. Yeah, okay. This is what I wanted to see. So for those of you that understand what this chart is, this is basically measuring the volatility metrics for the expansion phases. And now when we have expansion, we get, the colored moving average here up. The colored line, which is technically a moving average. It's gauging volatility though, or the dispersion of returns, as one crown would tell you. This is an indicator that he often shows as well. It's by the caretaker. You'll see this indicator is built into the Landy bands. By the way, you can find that in the link in my profile on X or in the link in the video description down below on YouTube. Now, caretaker was very kind to me and allowed me to pilfer his code to put a little readout for BBWP, which is a volatility metric. And in this case, you can also get the charted format by searching your indicators tab up here. But we see BBWP, or the volatility, picking up, and then now it's below the moving average, but the moving average still has a positive slope. So if Bitcoin were to, in this case, move up and get above by the end of this month, above the upper second standard deviation, which is just above the highs at 74,500. If Bitcoin continues to push up, by the way, in between now and the end of the month, we will see this likely continue to move up. This does adjust ever so slightly, the bands do. And it's probably going to be right around $75,000, where that's where one of the reasons why I'm calling above the local high here, the all-time high, I should say, at 73,835. I'm looking, for when Bitcoin does run the highs, to probably run around 73 to 75 once it gets above and recovers 72. I'm going to be calling for that 73 to 75, and then 75 to 78, 78 to 80, mid to low 80s from there. We'll discuss this as we get closer to the end of the month, if Bitcoin has started to move that way and recover the all-time high zone. In this case, this would be shaping up to be the next higher low on the monthly. Now, granted, we've got half the month still to go. But it is interesting how I've mentioned this in the past. During every expansion phase, when Bitcoin has started its expansion phase on the monthly time frame. Why is this not on log? Maybe that's what was goofing me up earlier with the candle sizes. It wasn't on log anymore for some reason. All right, so whenever Bitcoin has initiated its expansion, so it did it back here in October of 2020, and you can see, by the way, it did not achieve expansion in 2019. Thus, that was another point in the this is not the run court that I was calling out way back then. And then that went into a weekly downtrend. I did point this out, I believe, in the last Macro Mondays video, but In this case, it started to get slight expansion, but it wasn't until it closed above the upper second standard deviation here, the teal line there, or the teal standard deviation away from the moving average in this case. That's when expansion kicked off, and you'll see that right along the way it did tap on the the upper first standard deviation of the gray zone. And in this case, we saw our expansion kick off back here in December of 2023. That was exciting for those of you that remember being around during that point with me. I was extremely excited about that, and I was looking for expansion to the highs and higher. And I believe that's where we were talking about new all-time high before the halving, is right when that expansion kicked off because of the timing in December. But we only now really outside of, we reached for the upper first and then we kind of reached for it. It was more that it was chasing. This is the first real test of the upper first standard deviation since expansion back in December. So, nice bounce. As I mentioned, it could deviate below. As long as it doesn't close below 57,500 by the end of the month, it's looking good. And this will turn into the next higher low. Just as a reminder, one of the reasons why I haven't been in fear like everybody else that Bitcoin's going to fall much further, well, there's a few reasons for that, but the last higher low structure is down here at $25,000 on the wick, slightly under there, 24,900, and the close is at 25,900, so basically $26,000. So last higher low in the monthly is at 25 to 26K. Wasn't concerned about structure on the longer term time frames. Now, if this closes anywhere above 67,500 or so by the end of the month, we would be looking at this as starting to turn into the next big higher low with that wick down to 53. This is Coinbase at that 53,500. Some exchanges went a little bit lower. Bump my microphone, sorry. Realistically, what I'd want to see on the monthly is get above, close above 71,300 or so. And of course, break out above the all-time high on the monthly with a closing structure, or, we get the etchings of that in the lower term timeframes. But any close on the monthly above 71,300 would set this area as the next higher low of this particular uptrend on the monthly. So nothing wrong with this structure. Now, this is also where we'd be looking at possibilities of bullish resets as well. Whenever this does break out, 68,500 would do that by the end of the month. Yeah, looks good. Looks really good, at least right now. Does it have room for a pullback? Yes, 4 hours probably it's getting close. It's not quite ready for a pullback yet. It's still in beautiful expansion down, and then we got the compression right here over the Thursday into Friday. That was, of course, leading to that 12-hour compression that we saw going on Friday. Broke out above. Once it started closing above these highs, you see that the 59,500 area was tested on 2 4-hour candles before breaking above. They did a nice swing high to swing low here, and then was getting expansion. So once it started closing above this upper second and also breaking the highs here, then we got the nice expansion. So we got confirmation of a reclaim of overhead resistance by closing above it. Plus we kicked off expansion, like basically all in one candle. And then that led to the nice move up, and it took out this high, with fairly, it took about, what was that? about 12 hours. And actually took about 16 hours. So it took about 16 hours to break that 63,800 level. And then, looks good. I'm on the 4-hour chart, yeah? Yeah. So I had somebody look over it to me and give me eyes. Yeah, I am on the 4-hour chart, yeah. So, looks good in lower term time frame structure. It's pullbacks, right here. 63 and a half on the 4 hours, fine. But that's essentially the 62.8. We've got $62,000 in the 4 hour down here as well, but essentially 62.8 to 63.8 is fine on the daily. You've got $62,000 on the high over here, even down into like the upper 61s, but about $62,000 for this high here. And then we've got this high at, roughly $63,000. We also have an order block here in that zone, right around 62.5. What's this? 62,300 to around 63,300. So we got, is that really $1,000 candle? Yeah, it's 62,300 to 63,300. So we've got like a nice order block candle here, and it's right by the upper first. So this, if this is going to maintain its trending structure, we're going to see it closing, or you want to see it closing above the upper first standard deviation during the expansion phase like this. And that's right around $63,000, right around this order block zone. So looks good. Anywhere below there, basis band is it's quite a ways away, 60,700. So that's like the low side structure here. Again, $60,000, I don't really want to see Bitcoin heading back to without bullishly retesting on the daily. If it does it in a wick fashion on some lower term timeframes, no big deal. This looks good for some more. This move isn't quite done yet. You can see that down here, BBWP is getting into a critical area, 98 over 96. But because we have the moving average and the upper first here that are going to continue to move up as support, we have the lower first is now curling up, lower second is starting to curl up. This does mean that they're going to come into important areas from a volatility perspective. They're going to start lining up with important areas of support and resistance. So nice uptrend. Pullbacks in the lower term timeframes like the 4 hour, get a nice little bullish reset of momentum. And what you'll see is even if it just hangs out and goes sideways for a little while, you'll see the bands expand past price. And then wherever it expands past to are the next big upside targets before a consolidation. Hopefully, I'll be able to show that in some manner on Wednesday. But I think we're just going to leave things for right now. This might be a little too in the weeds for some of you. So if you are in any of the servers, whether it's NatMonkeys, as that is one of the servers where I am posting analysis and you can ask me questions, new Bitcoin order, extra ordinals, Ordinal Sigma X and Pepe Ordinals Maxi is, the places you can find and find me and ask me questions if you have any questions about this stuff. If you would like to jump into maybe a Discord chat and pick my brain about it. Other than that, come join me tomorrow. I'm going to be on the Welsh, that is the layer 2 Welsh Corgi coin. With a Spaces event with Stuart and the other Welsh team, and I believe some other Stacks teams as well that have some projects going on. I do want to pick their brain about the upcoming upgrade, or if it already happened. I'm not quite sure. Haven't been keeping up with it for Stacks, which is Bitcoin's, one of Bitcoin's biggest layer 2s right now. And it's quite successful. Has a lot of liquidity locked into that. So if you do want to join me, that's going to be, I believe, I'm just checking on it now. That's going to be 10:30 a.m., I believe, Pacific Standard Time. So if you just convert that to your time zone and you want to come hang out, you can check on X and you can come listen into the spaces. It should be a fun event. Yeah, Stuart and the team over there and the co-hosts and speakers that he brings up are always fun. And of course, I'll be on there to likely give my take on the market. So hope to see you there. Hope to see you in one of the Discord servers that I just called out there. I can always find them in my profile on X. And I want to welcome everyone who is new to my analysis. Again, you can even hit me up in the actual chats on X as well if you'd like. So you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that being said, Landy out.